Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by David, of course. Another installment of our Shield Recap Rewatch series. Again, this is a reaction / audio commentary hybrid that we've come up with. We've got two versions. On video, which is what you're seeing here on YouTube, you will find an edited down version with, of course, clips from the episode itself, as a more of a reaction style. And for those who are more inclined to listen to the entirety of our conversation, you can find that in audio format only on our podcast feed, where you can also find the remainder of our shows here, the Red Spotlight Podcast, which we have been doing for quite a number of years at this point. I like to call it the place, where we talk about movies and all the stuff coming out of the world of movies and more. And as far as where we are right here, again, we begin every episode with David and I expressing just, a wonderful amount of gratitude to the people who have been tuning in and feeling comfortable enough to share their thoughts with us. And we've really much have enjoyed the dialogue that we have had. So, and as hard as it is to believe, we're already 7 episodes into this show. It feels like we just yesterday that we've started, and now here we are, and well, here we are. We drop all of these Shield episodes every single Friday, so stay tuned right here. So, before we get into the episode itself, we like to actually talk about some of the comments that we received. David, I believe we have some new comments.
Yep, both of them are from Gary Marshall 4447. First one is, the tagline for season 1 was "Not all heroes are super." Enough said.
Not all heroes are super?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the tagline. I think that's on the part of the creatives and the studio that were trying to, like, at least the marketing, they were selling the idea that this show, again, was not supposed to be about superheroes, at least in this stage. And yet people didn't quite get the message.
Mm-hmm. For sure. The other is, this episode introduces one of my favorite recurring characters from the whole show. Ruth Negga's Reina doesn't get that much screening during this season, but she shines whenever we get to meet her. Their story arc is intriguing and ultimately tragic, but throughout it, Ruth brings to life a very interesting character. It's also no coincidence that she likes flower dresses. If only we had a character with a floral name.
With a floral name?
Yeah.
Well, technically we do. Is that what he was talking about?
Yeah,
we do. The Daisy.
Yeah, it was basically like flower dress, ... If only we had a character with a flower dress. So he was being sarcastic about it.
I see it now. I see the comment.
So yeah,
that's funny.
Mm-hmm. Although,
yes,
wasn't the flower dress because someone, basically the person who recruited her, gave her a flower dress, and ever since then
she always liked flowers.
Okay.
To be fair, I think you're referring to the fact that Ward did give her a flower dress, but they gave her a flower dress on behalf of Garrett because everybody knew she already liked flowers. She always wore flowers. Coulson asked her about it, and Garrett's nickname for Reina was Flowers. So she made, and literally, the episode, Girl in the Flower Dress. So definitely that stuck around for sure.
I thought that was a different reason for that, but...
No.
Mm-hmm.
It was always part of Reina's character. Also, a comment that we missed, I don't believe we read last time. This came from Jack Dubs, and that was a response to... one of the comments that came from Silva Surfa in regards to a lot of the fights and debates that fans have had from season to season. Remember that comment?
Yeah.
So I don't remember reading this one, so we're going to go ahead and take this time. Did we?
I don't think we read his comment.
No, that one we did not read. So let's go ahead and address that right now. Considering what happened to Fitz when he was removed from the framework against his will, which I think is what you were hinting at, it's probably for the best that Mac came out on his own terms. Okay. Agents are never going to agree on either Lincoln or Hunter. Interesting, he put it out Hunter. I don't remember or recall Hunter being a divisive individual or presence on the show. The yo-yo / Keller angst in the fandom makes me chuckle, as I still have no idea why people get so mad about it. Keller was a glorified red shirt who was always destined to die. I also remain indifferent to the nonsense that surrounds Deke. Evidently, there was a contingent. He says here in parentheses, not a slave trader. This unlocked a memory because, and look, I don't mean to laugh at people, but sometimes we gotta laugh at people because I feel like some people were trying to reconcile with the fact that they just did not like Deke as a personality or Jeff Ward's performance as Deke. I don't know what it is. And so one of the things that they were holding on to was this idea that we shouldn't like him because he's a slave trader.
I don't even remember that being a thing about his character at all. So I don't.
The only thing I can think of is that he evidently was like, it's because they were mad at what he did to Daisy, which is like he basically let her get captured. But there was a whole reasoning behind that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there are points in his favor for him to do that. And that was made clear throughout the season. But people, this is what I'm saying, that people just didn't like him, and they were looking for any excuse to tear him down. Mm-hmm. And I quite frankly can't understand why that is. Yeah. But again, season 5 is about the time when things start getting wacky and out of control, where I'm like, I don't understand you anymore. He continues, Ruby, besides the obvious Dove Cameron stunt casting, evidently people were like, Dove Cameron, why is she in the show? Okay, I mean, I didn't care who they got to play the character. I just don't think the character was, again, I don't think she was terrible, but she just was like, she's whatever. She was there. I think to me, the most that she contributed was a great laugh towards the end. But that was a psychotic laugh, not an intended joke. And then as for Fitz, his season 5 story is top tier Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for me. Yeah. So, again, people have different opinions. It's just how it is. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this episode.
Yeah.
This episode is called The Hub, and it is basically, we're at the point of the show where last week we had our Fitzsimmons episode, and you can also, I think you could say that the first 5 episodes, more or less, were focused on Skye. As she is, the principal character. So last week we had our Fitzsimmons episode. This week we have our Fitz Ward buddy tag-along episode, which again, I guess people at the time misconstrued as like filler, quote unquote, but it's like actually building character and what we're here to do. And if it wasn't for that, then why would we care? But then, we're going to have a lot of punchy things to say about people who complain about filler all the time. And I think there's a misconception about like what that actually means. But anyway.
Подождем следователя. Он тогда улыбаться не будет.
Looking forward to it.
We need to keep track of this, David. Like, when are we going to get an episode that doesn't start off like this? Because I feel like, and again, this isn't bad. Yeah. This is just the era that the show is in right now. But I'm genuinely curious when we start not getting openings like these. Although this actually doesn't involve one of our characters, so that's a bit of a change of pace.
You have the intel on you? They know.
I thought for a second he was tricking the other guards, being like, wait, you're a traitor or something?
Where are the dogs?
Don't be ridiculous.
That opening was just full of, don't let them know your next move.
Yeah.
Something like this. Don't worry. She knows what she's doing.
And here we are, again, we have to keep track of this as well, how Simmons is slowly building up to the major operations and procedures she's going to have to do. The last time we saw her, take out the cybernetic eye, or she tried to anyway, she couldn't quite do it. Akila did it for her. She seemed more at home handling corpses. Funnily enough, I think she seems to have a thing for corpses. I think that'll become a reoccurring thing throughout the series. But she has more of a, I guess, what's it called here? She's more shy, or I guess a little bit more nervous when it comes to living specimens. So even right now, when she was like slowly taking the thing out of the nose, it was a little bit like, just.
Also, that shot, it was like, it was in front of his face with the tube going up. That was CG, right? The tube.
Yeah, I imagine.
I think it was, because it didn't look right.
Yeah.
But,
This mission's classified. Clearance level 8.
Wait, what? He can just shut us out of the process like that?
Coulson's got you used to the plane, the way we do missions here. The hub is different.
This isn't introducing something that'll be kind of a recurring thing for the rest of the show, right? So for one, this is the first time where not everybody on the team can know about what the mission is at stake. And of course, with this episode, we haven't mentioned the Triskelion here, which we'll see. Well, we actually won't see on this show for a couple of seasons, but we do see in The Winter Soldier. Well, maybe we do see the Triskelion from a distance in episode 17. But here's the thing. This is the first episode where we have some interesting conflict at hand, right? So it's not just another one of these episodes where the team, gathers information and it's our adventure of the week. Here's some actual conflict in which not everybody can know.
Seems like the place to keep them, right?
I'll look into it, but right now we've got more pressing matters at hand.
Based on, the levels of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's also something that is going to rub Coulson the wrong way. And I think with Coulson is a couple of different things. When he tries to rebuild S.H.I.E.L.D. in season 2, there are a couple of blind spots that he has, and that ultimately results in the mutiny that happens, right? With the real S.H.I.E.L.D. situation. And then by season 3, he's far more, the team comes back to being what it is in these early episodes where, yeah, of course I'm going to trust you because I trust you already. We're not going to keep secrets from each other. And I think Coulson recognized that he was trying to have it both ways. Coulson wanted to have a S.H.I.E.L.D. where he got rid of the levels. He wanted to make sure everybody was equal, but he also was kind of a hypocrite about that. He wasn't really trusting everybody. He was trying to be not Nick Fury, but he was borrowing a lot of Nick Fury's style.
Agent Hand.
Agent Coulson.
As director, and keeping things unnecessarily from the people who he should already trust. That also includes May, which is why she rightfully feels pissed about the fact that he kept so much from her, especially in season 2, which is what I'm referring to. And I think all of that comes from right here. At least the beginning of it. Coulson not trusting S.H.I.E.L.D. in season 1 starts right here. And his whole not really agreeing with the whole levels thing. So in season 2, when he tries to do S.H.I.E.L.D. again,
we believe it creates sonic vibrations powerful enough to trigger weapons from a great distance.
He, I think, attempts to make everybody feel more like on the same playing field by having no levels, but he also can't help but not really, living up to that by keeping so much information from his team, and that ultimately implodes in a coup attempt. And then in season 3, we're all kind of on the same page now. But it's an interesting notion because this is going to be a thread about how much the team can know and can't know for the next 2 to 3 seasons. But also, again, I guess what we're seeing here is most important for the first season of Coulson's arc, because this is the beginning of sowing distrust in trust the system. They're going to say it several times here, trust the system.
I found a localized EMP plus a few other party favors. Oh, come on. What's it? Open. It's stuck.
I love this bit here. This has to be one of the funniest bits of the whole season with Fitz. And just the reactions they give him. And of course that
the cut.
When the cut to like, you don't mean, I think she does, and then we see this. What the
He just looks so innocent too. He's like, look what I got, guys.
Oh, that's...
I just can't believe you're going in. Dark. In hostile territory without...
And Fitz is handling it pretty well. You got to keep in mind, like, this is the character who wanted to go into the field the least, who at several points was cheering, even threw a fist bump in the air when he was informed he would not have to be in the field. In fact, this might be his first time being in the field officially since the Aquila Amador, being thrown over the bus situation. I mean, the van or whatever they were in. But he's taking it really well, but I think he knows that he needs to, like, own up to it. Like, try it, because he can't get out of it. He's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and, like...
Also, I think he's just trying to be brave for Gemma. Because, like, that's how he was when she was, we were learning that she might die and everything. He was just super calm about it for her.
Yeah, he jumped into action.
He's doing the same thing now for her.
So Simmons goes into the vacuum chamber wearing a bunny suit, but we just call it that because it covers your whole body.
I love here Fitz is just being so nonchalant about this, just telling these stories to Ward as if like nothing was, as if they weren't on a mission. Basically, I love his whole attitude. I also do feel that that's just his way of coping with like not panicking with what the situation is at hand with him.
She sneezes all over the Faraday cup.
And Ward is obviously not amused. But of course, as we come to find out, and it may come from here, Ward is a psychopath and he's a sociopath. And he will blame others for his own wrongdoing. But his own version of love, if you want to call that, he always has loved his younger brother, Thomas, I believe, which we don't see until way later in season 3. But very clearly, he thinks that the family hid Thomas from him, when in fact the whole time Thomas was like, fuck you, Ward, you're fucking crazy, I don't want you near me. And he changed his name and identity several times to keep Ward from finding him. And throughout the course of this season, you do get a sense of a brotherly bond, especially Fitz felt that way, which is why he feels so betrayed when Ward ends up being revealed as Hydra. But we shouldn't also forget about the fact that Ward was looking for something that had been lost to him with Fitz.
You is dead. You have no friends here.
And this is the sociopath and psychopath that Ward is like he knows at some point he's gonna have to kill these people, but why not use them along the way while he can? On some level, yeah, he likes them, but he also recognizes that he will eliminate them all the moment that Garrett tells him to. But despite all of that, here we're gonna begin to see a bond of sorts, and there is something real to it because Ward always is looking for something real to have, and definitely Fitz here is, let's just face it, he's in a little brother position in this situation because Ward is a field agent. He's a specialist. Like, he knows all the ins and outs of this job, and Fitz is just like being thrown in there, and he's trying to do the best he can, but again, it's like we haven't seen Fitz being able to do much of anything in the field up until this point.
And I know just the person who has them.
Who?
Coulson. I'm obviously talking about Coulson.
And I think at this point as an audience, we're kind of meant to be a little like, Skye, calm down. Okay, I know you feel paranoid and shit, but like, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. They're the good guys. Why would you be like looking into things? And then it turns out she's right. And then at this point, we have no idea how right she is. When it turns out that there was never a S.H.I.E.L.D., it was just Hydra hiding behind S.H.I.E.L.D. the whole time.
Not everyone gets sent to Tahiti.
It's a magical place.
It's also interesting that exchange that we had there from Victoria, Han, and Coulson, right? Because it gives us a glimpse to see what the other elite upper agents think of Phil. And I think Victoria just revealed that right there, right? When she just said, how does it feel? Or she said, it must feel good to be back in the big leagues. And I guess that's what they think, that Phil no longer is a part of the big leagues ever since he got stabbed by Loki. And that he's on this like mobile command center unit in this team of people. And Coulson was like, what do you mean, left the big leagues? My team is at the center of this op. I never left them. which is pretty interesting. I think you're getting a sense that some of these agents are a bit like, maybe not envious, but a bit just like, why does Fury treat you so special? Why do you get this plane? And then also, why do you get to skirt protocol, and why do you get off so easy when you break the rules and shit? And again, remember that Victoria Hand alongside Felix Blake, who we saw in the last episode, are gonna have their suspicions about Coulson because of how often he's just like curbing the rules to the point where they're gonna become conspiracy theorists by adding up all of the different times that Coulson has lied and come to the conclusion that he's Hydra, when in fact he's not.
How did it go? Nothing. He's acting like a robot version of himself right now.
Which we'll find out in season 7. We'll get a robot version of himself. One of the things that's pretty funny, and you know this was never intended, but throughout the show, there will be lines dropped that are just like, haha, like, yeah, that'll ever happen. And then wait.
I can't be a part of your bad girl shenanigans. I like following the rules and doing what's expected of me. Makes me feel nice.
It will end up happening because in a couple of episodes, Sky will like basically joke to May, what? You never thought about piloting an alien spaceship? And then she does do that in a couple of seasons. So.
Low to the left, Vladimir. Gentle. Gentle.
I love how Fitz, when you least expect it, how you wouldn't be able to think it would be useful in the field, and yet look what's happening here. He's proving himself to be very useful because right now it's not, we don't know it, but in a few minutes he's going to reveal that he was the one that caused the power to go out, because he knew that, you know, because these people are so obsessed with what the fuck's going on TV and whatever sport they're watching, right? So he was like, well, let me just blow out the power. I'll fix it for them. And guess what? I'll get them to like me. And now we'll be right here. Get this man a drink, as she says.
Man a drink.
Oh, no.
I love that. And he's playing along, but I think he's also being genuine. It's like, oh, when you're being friendly, you can be really friendly.
Already moving! Hurry up!
I love how he's screaming and running at the same time. Fitz's scream is always going to be comical, and it only gets even more comical as the show goes on. I think these writers, look, always know when they got something funny, and I don't think it ever gets to the point where they like beat it so over our heads where it's not funny. You know, whether it be reoccurring things like, you know, Fitz wanting a monkey, but even something as simple as Fitz screaming, sometimes they use that scream in a different tone where it's like actually pretty just like dramatic and intense, but every now and then they'll use it in a comedic sense. And for example, we'll see this back when he's wearing like an Andy Serkis, like what's it called, motion capture suit, and he's trying to like, impersonate somebody else, and he's like trying to move his mouth, and he's like screaming really loudly next to Talbot. One of the funniest moments on the show ever. Mm-hmm. So you got to give him credit for knowing what's funny.
Trust the system. May, thanks.
Then also here, this whole sequence itself is pretty hilarious because this Coulson, he thinks he's talking to May, but he's talking to himself, and May about to roll her eyes right here. It's just like, Jesus. She didn't say anything. She was just there the whole time.
This is actually a bit thrilling.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Oh, and this whole thing right here is going to be hilarious. This is her first time. This is like baby's first time trying to lie, right? Mm. And it is an unmitigated disaster what happens. Keep in mind, this is the same agent who we're going to see infiltrate and be a spy at Hydra in just a season. Mm-hmm. Growth. Hello.
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Agent Sitwell, sir. May I help you?
So the guy playing Agent Sitwell, I listened to like a clip from a podcast that he was on that apparently to like this day, people keep going up to him and going, "Hail Hydra."
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's just, I think the story that he told too was actually he was at some bar and the bartender like gave him like a free drink and like actually just went "Hail Hydra" as he gave it to him.
Oh my God, that's amazing! I love that story.
Yeah.
No, don't. You certainly have a gorgeous head.
The way she's like twirling her head.
Do you have authorization to access that panel?
Say yes. Say you do.
Oh. Of course.
It's open, isn't it? Just say that.
This is Agent Sitwell. I need an escort.
Sorry.
Wow.
No, I mean, if you want to look at this logically, like, how is no one else there? She must have been caught on camera or something like that. But I don't care. It was funny. Also, she said that. It's like, do you have access to this panel? It's like, is it open? Yeah, I do.
Oh yeah.
Redacted documents.
And here we are, interestingly, with Sky. Again, this is another scene to kind of reinforce, is she here for her own personal reasons, or does she actually care about the people? Obviously she does care about, but what does she care about more? We'll see her theme right here playing again, right now in the background, but she's going to have to choose between how much time she dedicates to finding the file that she actually wants to find that would have some clues about where her family is, or information about the mission, which she already is very suspicious about, why they're not letting them know more about what's going to happen with Fitz and Ward. And what we come to find out is there is no extraction plan.
Oh my god. No extraction.
And Coulson's not going to know. He's not going to say, but, and he never actually does reveal, but maybe he does, but he will, I think, complain to Victoria Hand about the fact that he should have at least known. And that is kind of suspicious at the end of the day. It's like, if Victoria Hand knew, why wouldn't Agent Coulson know, especially when it's a person of his team, if there would be no extraction plan? So it's really interesting.
It's about the mag pouch.
I always laugh at this. It's really funny just when they have their like spy gadgets and how they do shit. It's cool and everything. But there's a bit of a design flaw in this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
if you have it on the right angle, it works. But then also, you gotta have really great timing to do that. What they just did.
Yeah, and not get run over.
I thought it was a sleeping bag for a second. I was like, dang, y'all gotta sleep like right next to each other.
Our team can go off book because there is a book, a hub, an organization watching our backs. You claim that you want to be part of that.
Did you know there was no extraction plan for Ward and Fitz?
That's classified.
Coulson's going through a lot. And we can't forget that he has changed after his near-death or his death experience. And certainly Sky is having a big impact on him. Especially in this moment. I'm sure right now, as we discussed a few minutes ago, but it was a big surprise to him, the idea that there is no extraction plan, or even worse, the fact that he wasn't told that there would be no extraction plan. Which again, the show would ultimately be on the side of Sky right here, saying it's like, that's really what S.H.I.E.L.D. is all about, trust the system. And then he just said verbatim to her, you see right what Ward's doing right there to see, and he's finding out for the first time there's going to be no extraction. But what Coulson said to Scott, this bit is this is actually a great episode full of funny bits. Right here.
Oh my god, Ward, he's attacking the others. He's coming straight for us. Ward!
Hurry, inside.
Great timing, great line, I don't care. Sue me. But Coulson said to her, if S.H.I.E.L.D. keeps a secret from you, it's for a good reason. Well, I'm sorry, bud, but that's not gonna really go along with your main story this year. Because S.H.I.E.L.D. kept a whole lot of secrets from him, and when he finds out, he's pissed.
You yourself have designed dozens of operations like this. You know how this works.
Usually with an extraction plan.
Barton, Romanoff, they never have an extraction plan.
They know that going in.
Good scene.
And I really do like these references to the movies. Like, it doesn't seem forceful or anything like that. Especially in this moment, it's like, oh, well, there's this and this. It's like, yeah, but
because Romanoff and Barton are agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
That's how they started off. Like, they're known. Yeah, go ahead.
But also, I like that bit of detail. It's like a agent, you know, they both go in without an extraction plan. It's like, yeah, but they know that going in either way. Like, that's what they're willing to do. It's like, that's a great piece of information for those two characters.
You're in? Thought we all had to be level 8 to discuss this.
We're not discussing anything.
I think this moment right here, there's a blooper scene where it's like that shot of them, the camera's like on top of them. I think they do like a, oh my god, fuck, what's the thing? Some Charlie's Angels reference. They go, thanks Charlie, or something like that.
Thought we all had to be level 8 to discuss this.
We're not discussing anything.
Yes, Charlie!
I haven't checked out too many of the bloopers. Maybe we should do a reaction to that.
Are you sure this is gonna work?
Yes, theoretically.
I'm not sure if you recall, but this overkill weapon, we're actually going to see it again. Well, I don't know if we see it again this season, but we are going to see it again in the second episode of season 2. Coulson uses the weapon to tranquilize Carl Creel, and puts him in stasis. I think that's the same weapon. Yeah. So it's always fun when a lot of these old MacGuffins do come back in play. You know, like that other, like that device. I forget what it's called, but that little staff that when you
brought it up,
the little part comes up and it like. That'll come back several times. The Hydra weapon, I guess, that zaps things, that comes back to kill when Coulson kills Garrett. The Gravitonium comes back. So a lot of these early... Again, people say, this stuff is worthless, the alien writing. Like, all these things come back at play. Again, I don't know if that was ever the point or the purpose, but... I think as we're going through these episodes, we have to remind ourselves that it was always just kind of full of shit, right? This idea that these episodes were a waste of time. And you lose a lot of context if you skip them. Like right here, you're given a lot of reason to care about Fitz, especially here, right? This is Fitz's like first solo outing. Well, not solo, but with Ward. But you know, this is his first real like mission apart from Simmons. And we're getting to see what he can do in that situation. I love the cavalry here. The cavalry reference.
It's the extraction team! Better! It's the cavalry.
All our resources we needed elsewhere. And it's Agent Coulson's team. They didn't need one.
This right here is an interesting exchange because I feel like Victoria Hand has kind of a rough exterior, right? And we needed these moments here of her having a humanity to her and her actually showing some admiration for Coulson and his team right there. And for us, we should keep that in mind when, remember how they tried to make us think she was Hydra. And because of how, again, she has a rough exterior, right? She rubs people the wrong way and she can be kind of a hard ass. And so I think to a lot of us, when she's first kind of like, they did a fake reveal where it's like, oh, she's Hydra. And I think a lot of us are tempted to believe that, but they throw in moments like these to remind us, oh no, she can't be Hydra. Like she's actually, there's a person there to her. She just doesn't show it to people. And you also, get an interesting way, a contrast, right? Because look at the way that Jasper Sitwell looked at her, kind of like, what was that about? Like he acknowledged in the way that Victoria Hand said that was in an admirative tone, and he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And he is Hydra, and he wouldn't really have that kind of admiration. He has no honor. He's Hydra, so they're telling us the whole time without getting too deep into it.
Anything exciting happen at the hub?
I shot a superior officer in the chest.
The document wasn't about you directly. It was about the person who dropped you off at the orphanage. The agent was unidentified. Right now, that's all I have. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Thank you.
It's really pretty fucking tragic, right? Like how, she's been hoping her whole life. It turns out S.H.I.E.L.D. was trying to protect her from monsters her whole time. Her parents were the monsters. They were on a fucking rampage to find her. That's why she was being moved around from agency to agency. S.H.I.E.L.D. did that.
I'm sorry, but you don't have access to that document, sir.
There must be some mistake. I'm level 8. I have clearance for that file.
The system indicates that you don't.
And that'll set up the rest of the season. So, let's look at what people thought about this. Oliver and David, Oliver Savon and David Sims from AV Club. Oliver wrote, "Trust the system. It's a phrase repeated often in the hub. A quick way to shut up anyone that asks too many questions about an organization that depends on secrets to achieve success. It's also something that the characters on this show are finding harder and harder to do with each episode as they realize the system isn't necessarily working in the best interests of the makeshift family being formed on the bus." Like every episode to this point, the hub is a mixed bag, he says. The positives include mixing up character combinations to complicate the interpersonal dynamics, building up the duplicitous nature of S.H.I.E.L.D., and instilling a sense of brevity in increasingly dire circumstances. But the negatives continue to prevent the series from becoming more than middle-of-the-road action-adventure television. The long-term plots aren't as captivating as the writers think they are. The central mission is formulaic. Even with a solid mid-episode twist, Skye is becoming an increasingly problematic character. Okay.
No.
Chloe, here's some tough words ahead. He says, Chloe Bennett isn't an obnoxious actress. She was perfectly acceptable playing a more subdued character on Nashville last year, but good lord is Skye getting more and more irritating with each episode. No. She doesn't seem to understand that the entire point of S.H.I.E.L.D. is secrecy. You're not watching the episode. Okay. And her constant complaining about being kept in the dark is just making me wonder why Coulson is keeping her around in the first place. She's a computer genius. So what? There are probably dozens at S.H.I.E.L.D. That can do what she does. And if there aren't, there obviously isn't. For the purpose of this show, there really much isn't. Then S.H.I.E.L.D. really sucks at picking agents. When Skye and Simmons team up to figure out the truth about Ward and Fitz's mission, the ease with which they bypass security makes S.H.I.E.L.D. look incredibly incompetent. That's fair. But it's funny. So I don't care. These are the people protecting the Earth? No wonder it's always on the verge of destruction. The hub builds up more of S.H.I.E.L.D. mythology, bringing Coulson's group to the hub and everything. And they face Victoria Hand. While they're not huge comic book players, at least the show is making an effort to incorporate more of the larger MCU. More of this crap. With this episode, I'm officially bored with the mystery of Coulson's resurrection. He's not alone in that. A lot of people felt that way. Do you get that?
Wait, bored of his...
He said he doesn't care anymore, basically. With this episode, I'm officially bored with the mystery of Coulson's resurrection. When Victoria Hand is talking to him and mentions how Tahiti is a magical place, it's hard not to groan, and the episode's tag, with which shows Coulson being denied access to the file, is devoid of suspense. The hints being dropped suggest that either he was brought back to live via magic or as a life model decoy, but the snail's pace of this storyline's progress is preventing me from giving a shit anymore. I have slightly more interest in the mystery of Skye's parents, although I'm really hoping the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who brought Skye to the orphanage as a child would be Agent Coulson, explaining why he feels so responsible for her success. This person is getting really, really impatient with the way in which things are being relayed to us. Do you feel that's understandable?
I mean, I don't understand not caring about how he was resurrected and all that, but I can understand that he finds more interests in other things. You know, like it. I mean,
his overall thing is that everything's moving too slowly.
Yeah, basically.
And I feel like it's not entirely wrong, because they did have to drag some things out until the 17th episode with the big reveal and everything. But still,
yeah, I don't think it's going at a slow pace, but also not caring about his resurrection is kind of weird, just because it's kind of important to bring up, you know. So
then he asks David what he thinks. And David says, and I want to be clear, this is not you, David Francisco, but David Sims, who also wrote this article for this review for AV Club. Man, Oliver, I am so in the bag for this show in what Marvel is trying to do with it. I am so in the bag for any show created by Joss Whedon, even when he doesn't have much of a hand in running. But I am near the end of my tether with this show. Like you say, this episode is a mixed bag with some perfectly smart moments. I'd say there's 3 big elements to every episode: the mission of the week, the longer arcs, and the interpersonal dynamics. Why is this a problem? Also, this is the thing that's so infuriating. And it's like, literally every show does this. Why is it when this is trying to be a TV show, you're like, this is why you suck. The fuck are you talking about? And now look where we are right now. It's thinking like this that has contributed greatly to the state of TV right now, which is non-existent. Which is just a bunch of 6-episode miniseries with no kind of space to develop anything the way that it should be. I'm sorry I'm getting angry, but this is they're angry and I'm angry at them being angry. Like, what the fuck? He says, the missions of the week are the reason people are complaining about this show. Which is, okay. You can do whatever you want with world building and have the cutest, most charming cast on television, but the episodes have to be watchable. Wow. Increasingly, they are not. Damn. Any action show is going to be a little slow to start after a bombastic pilot. You won't be able to match the energy for a couple of episodes. But we're 7 episodes in now, and the action still feels very, very cookie cutter. Lots of bland sets and anonymous villains, not enough weird superpower stuff, and too many bland magic MacGuffin devices. I like the pairing of Ward and Fitz, and the show's efforts to bring him and Simmons more into the action. Last week wasn't bad either, but I like the idea of what's happening more than what's actually on the screen. You pinpointed it, Oliver, by asking if the stakes were high enough. No way! There's no way this show is going to kill off one of its very few cast members so early on. Even if it did, what would I care? I barely care about them, particularly Ward, no matter how many times the series tries to do the self-aware straight man bit with him. I'm more invested in the long-term plots, I suppose. There's always an interesting tension to the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. is by necessity an organization that makes moral compromises and considers its agents somewhat expendable. I'd be more intrigued by the mystery of Phil's resurrection if the change for him was beyond a slight uptick in energy and recklessness and whatever. I'm enough of a nerd that I want the question answered. But Lord, there's so much more potential in the comic book universe. S.H.I.E.L.D. is barely plumbing. Sure, there's Victoria Hand, but that role could have been any stock character. The mere fan service of the name is not enough for me. Why isn't this show world building more? So far, outside of a brief winks and references to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this show could be any secret agent show. Shadowy organization, villains of the week, diverse group of operatives and different skills. I know this show exists in a comic book universe, but I only because I've been told that it does. How about character interplay? I'm sorry if I'm stopping in the middle of his review, but I'm just like, what do you mean, how about character interplay? You've been getting nothing but that this entire time. And then he's saying, I'm not quite as sour as Sky as you, Oliver, but I'll admit her shtick is not evolving into anything specific. I could care less about Fitz and Simmons' flirtation or whatever, motivating the tranquil Agent May. I don't hate any of the actors. Even Agent Ward is flat, but he's not so dire. But outside of Coulson, if they blew up in an accident and got replaced next week, I could deal. That's not a good place for a show to be 7 episodes in. There's still room for growth. There's potential. I'm going to keep watching, but we're giving this show a B-, which unless there's some change made, it's pretty much the ceiling for the show at this point. I don't know if humor, a change in stakes, or some dynamic, dramatic shakeup like having the team detach from the infrastructure of S.H.I.E.L.D. in some way will prove to be the answer. But as it is, I don't know how I could ever recommend this show to anyone but a Marvel completist. Do you see the mentality that was at stake? And again, this is the mentality that was being purported by a lot of the review community on YouTube. And again, we have to keep in mind the fandoms of all the people are very much like, they don't have the language, they don't have the vocabulary to really pinpoint the reasons for why they don't like something, but they will very much gleam onto whatever these people are saying. And this right here read exactly like all the crap I was reading. This review brought me back to what it was like watching this show as it was airing in season 1, because this was the majority opinion of people that were watching this show. And I, even right now reading this, 11 years later, and I'm just baffled looking at it. I'm like, what the hell, dude? Like, hey, I get it if it ain't working for you, but this seems a bit overly aggressive considering what we just watched was a perfectly fine, entertaining episode of television. And I'm sorry, but I don't, again, this really, there was a lot in here that was, saying it's like, I wouldn't know if this was in the MCU if they didn't tell me. It's like, look, we're not getting some big players here. That obviously was never the point. But even in this X-Files era of the show, you're getting to see more of what the MCU looks and feels like. And evidently, to these people, it's like, oh. This was, wow, they were angry.
Yeah.
They pulled no punches. Your thoughts on this reaction?
I hate it when people complain about stakes in movies and shows, because it's like
always.
Especially because I want to get to specifics of it all. It's like, okay, you don't feel like the main characters are in danger. First of all, we're only 7 episodes in. You're not gonna get a sense of danger from these characters. Even even with last episode, it was pretty obvious. Okay, they're gonna save the day, obviously, because there's, again, 6 episodes in, they're not gonna kill them off or anything like that. If they did, cool. It would have been a bit big surprise and everything, but just would have been whatever. I mean, I would have missed Gemma, obviously, but it would have been whatever in the first watch. But then also, okay, I was gonna go with this. When they brought up they need something to shake up the dynamic of the characters, again, too early. That's not even something that you do on the first season. You do that seasons later. When it comes to,
and
I
think he knows that. I think what he was saying is that things are so terrible that they need to save the show. That's, I think, the perspective that he has, is that what we've been given so far is that terrible that it needs a big shakeup. And I'm just like, you're fucking insane.
Yeah.
We're not anywhere near that territory where we have to blow things up just to maintain interest. And I'm sorry that that's how you felt, these people, but it's like, that's... Yeah. I can't believe this shit, man.
Yeah. But then also, going back to the whole stakes of it all, it's perfectly fine if you don't feel any stakes for these characters at all. Because I've seen tons of TV shows where I don't feel danger. I don't feel like these characters are in danger. Just name any animated movie or show. I'm never gonna be afraid that someone's gonna die or anything like that. But then also, you kind of have to think about, okay, maybe the characters themselves aren't going to feel in danger, but you kind of have to add stakes on other things, when it just being in some random character, the one with the eyes, I forgot the name of her name again. The Coulson's protege, Aquila, with her like that. It's her life that's at stake towards the end of the episode. Like that's how you do it, and it's perfectly fine when it doesn't have to be the main characters.
Yeah. Here's what Eric Goldman wrote at IGN. The Hub was a decent episode, but didn't quite keep up the upward trajectory of the most recent S.H.I.E.L.D. installments. What was very good to see was the show include the most overflow yet from the previous week in terms of a continuing story and not having the episodes exist in a vacuum. What happened with Simmons was mentioned, at least in passing, multiple times. The fact that, hey, look at Ward being cool moment where he grabbed the parachute from Fitz actually really bothered Fitz was a nicely done character beat as Fitz confronted the Uberman he worked with. I think, look, here's a different complaint. Are the first episodes that we've been watching standalone? Yeah. But I think people are over-exaggerating the extent of which they believe that each episode existed in a vacuum and that they weren't, we've been saying this the whole time, that they weren't all at a time contributing to a larger storyline or actually building character. They are. They don't have to, like, talk about what literally happened every single week, what happened last week. I think, eventually S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to become serialized, where every single episode is, progressing a storyline, and you very much feel that. I think season 2, and really all the way to the end of the show, they do that. Season 1, the first half of season 1, is not as obvious, and so it's testing a lot of people's patience. But then here's the thing that really fucking irks me. And then this is where I said last week, I know that we were talking about different opinions and how we were talking about how, there are different things that we like and dislike and people would be quite shocked about. The Mandalorian is a show that I don't care about at all. But it was not unnoticed by me that one of the things that people were complimenting at no end about The Mandalorian was how episodic the nature of the show was. That there was an adventure of the week, that there wasn't it wasn't as interconnected, and it wasn't like, that there was something different every week, and that it wasn't a standard show where every single week was building towards something. At some point the audience turned on that show for it being too much like that, which is why I think season 3 feels different than the other 2 seasons. But the first 2 seasons are very much that episodic style of the show, and I'm just here like you guys said that was a terrible thing to do, and here we have the proof that is like criticizing the show to no end about you suck because you're episodic. We want a continuous storyline. But when it came to that, which I am sorry to have to inform some of these people, I know there was a comment that was made a few weeks ago about somebody saying that Game of Thrones was a garbage show. We don't agree with that at all, but hey, you feel you, right? And we have a right to feel how we feel. The Mandalorian is the epitome of garbage. And it also is insane to me how that show literally had everything going for it, and people were making excuses left and right over some pretty glaring issues. Yet here in this instance, it's just a fucking pile on. It's a punching bag at this point for things that are like not really there. So excuse my tangent and my rant there. Back to what Eric said. That helped make up for that helped make up for the earlier scenes with the bumbling, fumbling, can't get through the automatic glass door fits, with just went on to an eye-rolling place. Okay, I thought it was funny.
I thought it was funny. Yeah.
It was, I think either you get the humor or you don't. I vibe with it and I love it. And I guess if you don't vibe with that humor, then maybe that's why it turned you off. Then again, you vibe with the humor of the MCU. Okay. Yes, the idea is Fitz is a genius in his specific field, but not so smooth otherwise. But still, you cross a certain line where it becomes hard not to think, this is a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent? Much funnier because it felt more natural, if that's the right word. But Eric, you're supposed to feel that way. that these first few episodes, you're supposed to ask yourself that question. What, these are S.H.I.E.L.D. agents? That's the point. You're supposed to be asking yourself that. And by the time you get to the end of the next season, you're going to be like, yes, this is a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. People just wanted everything at once. You're right, David. They just wanted it all there from the get-go. They didn't want to build to anything. Jeez, I'm getting really worked up. What's he say? Okay. The episode was jam-packed with Marvel references without thankfully needing to directly mention the events of the Avengers. As a Marvel fan, it was hard not to appreciate Simmons mentioning the Triskelion, seeing Agent Sitwell from the Marvel movies again, or introducing Victoria Hand. Hand was portrayed as the hard ass we first met in the comic, though the ending let us know she wasn't so bad, as she looked the other way over Coulson and the others going after Ward and Fitz. Looked the other way to a fault, I'd say, since Skye would not only hack their system, but Simmons shot Sitwell. Even if it was the night-night gun, it seemed too much for Hand. Sitwell and S.H.I.E.L.D. in general to let go without consequences, going beyond Coulson, taking his own team's plane to an unsanctioned risky mission. This episode did move the story along as we learned Skye's mother was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. At least that's what we're led to believe in this instance, even though that's not what ends up happening. That's me saying that, and go back to his words. One who apparently met a tragic end. And more importantly, on the ongoing story front, it was good to see Coulson finally realize something really was wrong with his "it's a magical place" response when Tahiti came up, and actively begin to look into what happened to him. That's right, it's no accident that the same episode, he catches himself saying it's a magical place. He then calls up and looks up, this is weird. I want to see my file. And an even bigger red flag. They're like, you don't have answer. You don't have access to see that file. It's been hard to reconcile the cheerful, even goofy portrayal of the core S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in the show with the darker portrayal of this group in the films. I'm going to stop right there. How much darker are we talking about how S.H.I.E.L.D. is portrayed in the movies? Are we talking about the World Security Council throwing a nuclear weapon at New York City as if that was S.H.I.E.L.D.'s decision? It was not S.H.I.E.L.D.'s decision. S.H.I.E.L.D. wouldn't do that. Nick Fury said it as much. It's a stupid-ass decision. The World Security Council overruled S.H.I.E.L.D. And who was the head of the World Security Council in that movie? The actor Powers Booth played Gideon Malik, who was one of the heads of Hydra. At the time, we didn't know, but it was Hydra who ordered that weapon be sent out to New York, not S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm not saying there weren't aspects of Nick Fury's S.H.I.E.L.D. that were, there were darker sides of S.H.I.E.L.D., yes. But do we really get an opportunity to see that in the movies? The Winter Soldier notwithstanding, we don't have the Winter Soldier here at this point. In the MCU, we've got the Dark World. No, not even then. We only got Iron Man 3, 2, 1, Thor, and then Captain America and the Avengers. Like, what are you saying is a much darker version of this organization that we're not seeing here in the show? And then the darker side of it, at which point would then reveal itself to be Hydra. He continues to say, especially when you see Captain America, the Winter Soldier trailer. Yeah, there's a reason for that. However, with next week's episode tying into Thor the Dark World, there's no way the show will ignore the events of Cap 2. And this episode laid more seeds on the heels of last week for Coulson's group coming into bigger conflict. Meanwhile, I love Ming-Na Wen and her deadpan portrayal of Melinda May, and it was funny when she was asked, what non-expression is this? However, it's time we get to know more about May and her background. You will in 2 weeks, actually. Yeah. The addition of more secrets to Skye's past underscored that S.H.I.E.L.D. is relying too much on mysterious past for several characters at once, to the point that it becomes frustrating. Let's learn more about what makes these folks tick. That was a review. So, I think Eric was far kinder to the episode. He had his issues, but I think, look, you're getting to see a bit of a consensus, right? There's a growing frustration at the time with people beginning to turn on the show. Like, I don't know what it was. Ultimately, but this is the point where we're seeing them turn on the show and like calling it out and being pretty kind of vicious about it. And ultimately, you and I come away with the same perspective in that expectations were really not helping out S.H.I.E.L.D. a whole lot here. And ultimately, the show could not control the grand expectations that people had for it. But, and again, we're not saying this is an amazing show. It's great from the get-go. We're not saying there aren't any problems. When there are problems, we point them out. Exactly, even this episode. But it's just like to pretend like this is something to be that angry over, really? Most of it's good.
Yeah.
Most of it does really good things to advance the characters and your reason to care about them. I feel like if you're coming away from this episode and you're complaining about I don't care about these people, you're kind of like checking out. And you know what? To be fair, on some level, that's fair. That whatever, if a show's not working for you, get the fuck out. But at the same time, I don't think you're, based on what I was reading, it seemed like their frustration was getting in the way of them giving it a fair chance to begin with. That's how it comes off.
No, I mean, you can tell the difference too, especially because like the things that we pointed out in this episode, it's just kind of like small things, like with the whole Gemma shooting agent, whatever his name is, Sitwell, and I said it. It's like how there are no other cameras, how there are no other people. It doesn't make sense, you know.
It's way too easy.
Yeah, but like that's a logical criticism to take on the episode and everything.
Does it really matter in the context of the show? No, not really.
I don't really care. It was a funny
and we
bit.
mentioned it that we were in favor of it being a comical sequence. It was memorable. It was funny.
Yeah.
It landed. Did it make sense? No, but
yeah, but like
what show are we watching here? Does everything have to make sense?
Yeah, and then also it's a difference that stuff that we point out don't really care about it much, but everyone else is just like, where's the Marvel references? I don't see how this is part of the MCU. And it's like, I don't really care that much about that. Especially because like we mentioned too in Guardians of the Galaxy, like we like that movie a lot. And a part of it is because it's away from the MCU. Like we can't really tell it's a part of it. And then also with the Marvel Netflix shows, they reference, Battle of New York a lot, especially with the Daredevil show, but that one in of itself, it's its own thing too. Like you can't really tell that it's part of the MCU. Besides the minor references, which is like.
But David, can you? I know this is what you're saying, but isn't it fucking asinine how Guardians and Daredevil, when they first came out, the reviews were so favorable to them, and part of why they were praising them was like, wow, this is so great. It's so removed from the MCU, and therefore that's what makes it even better. But when it comes to this thing here that we're talking about, trying to be its own thing, that's even, they use that as a weapon against this show. And now you might say, well, this show sold itself as the Marvel show. I mean, maybe clearly the tagline that we just talked about in the beginning of this episode, if you ask Whedon, if you ask Loeb, they would say otherwise. They had a different show in mind than what you all expected. So it's like, but okay, and you might even say, well, fair to Guardians, but Daredevil is also a TV show. But the fact that it, referred to the Battle of New York as the incident was like, wow, they called it the incident. Bravo for not, tying yourself to the MCU that way and being its own thing. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you over there, fuck you for being your own thing. That's not what you were supposed to be. You were supposed to give us superheroes every single week. You were supposed to give us Avengers every single week. That's why we hate you, and we'll continue to hate you. We'll continue to laugh at you for the rest of your existence. That's what this comes across. That's ultimately what you were saying.
But then also, when it comes to like anything that people want to hate on, things just go out the window, whether it's storytelling stuff or just things that they want to stand by on. I mean, you can just tell the difference with any other YouTuber where, like, if they like one thing, but then you see the things that they hate about another show or movie, and it's like, wait, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Like, it's just like, again, for this one in particular, like, all storytelling goes out the window when they want to hate on this show. Like, the whole fact of, like, they don't know what's leading up to the fillers thing and all that. It's like, come on, this is basic stuff the show is doing like any other show. I don't really understand what you're complaining about. So it gets annoying.
Yeah, it gets especially annoying, especially when we know they're dead fucking wrong, and they're pretty fucking hypocritical. And there are plenty of instances when they've shown their hypocrisy. But, yeah, we're still waiting for an apology for S.H.I.E.L.D. in this instance, but I guess not. As we begin to wind down, where are we 7 episodes in? Contrary to what we just read, and obviously, look, it is, at this point, a perfectly entertaining enough show to watch. And look, we know ultimately they had their hands tied in terms of the pace in which they revealed things. And to their credit, they listened. They listened to that criticism, and beginning with season 2, things moved at so much of a breakneck pace, and you didn't even notice. You didn't feel that awkward or out of place. They just jumped into it, and they just kept moving along and not wasting your time. But I also would say, I don't even think season 1 falls into the category of wasting your time. I never felt for a single instance while watching this show that my time was wasted, whether it came to the storylines or the characters themselves. And I also really, at the end of the day, I appreciate the fact that they had no other choice but to focus primarily on who the characters were in this first half of the show before the real show was revealed halfway through this season. But again, everything that we're seeing happen is going to build to the stakes, is going to build to the story, to the character of that reveal. That reveal means nothing if you don't care about what's going on or who these people are. I don't know how many times it needs to be repeated, but it seems like we're going to have to do that. And I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching and listening right now feel that frustration and remember how frustrating it was watching this in real time and us being made to feel like we're taking crazy pills for actually having some reasonable expectations of just watching a freaking television show, a good TV show at this point, and everybody else thinking this is supposed to be like the best thing since sliced bread. Anywho, I think we're at a good place to stop. Thank you, David, for being here. Thank you all for listening and watching. And again, if you have anything to say at all, clear your conscience. Please leave a comment down below, and we will do our best to interact and respond to what you have to say. And stay tuned for more of our recap series, as well as our other shows on this wonderful network. We will see you next time under our big, beautiful red spotlight. Next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.